General Convention is the Episcopal Convention. Similar to our diocesan convention, where all the churches in the diocese gather, General Convention is the church assembled. Every Episcopal diocese from every country in the Episcopal Church gathered together for 9 days of legislation, liturgy, and fellowship. As the governing body of the Episcopal Church, General Convention meets every 3 years, and it is the opportunity for our diocese to live into its work in the world. At the 79th General Convention, the Church met in Austin, Texas, from July 5th to 13th. But the work of your deputation started soon after their election in December of 2016. Your representatives started meeting regularly as a deputation, and some were appointed to interim bodies, charged with doing the work of convention between general conventions. And others attended a joint meeting of representatives from all 6 California diocesan deputations, a very productive head start to what would prove to be an historic convention. General Convention is a bicameral legislature that includes the House of Deputies, which has more than 800 members, and the House of Bishops, which has nearly 300 active and retired bishops. Each house has its own presiding officer, Presiding Bishop Michael Curry, and President of the House of Deputies, Gay Clark Jennings. Meeting concurrently in Austin was the triennial meeting of the Episcopal Church Women, where the Diocese of Los Angeles was well represented by our triennial delegation. The Diocese of Los Angeles played a leadership role at this year's General Convention in Austin, crafting and shepherding legislation, promoting church growth, reconciliation, peace, and justice, and helping run the whole show behind the scenes. Let's hear about that from Bishop Bruce.
My role in the House of Bishops as Secretary for the House of Bishops during General Convention becomes very different from the way other bishops are assigned and what they do every day during General Convention. My morning started very early with the presiding bishop, the head of dispatch, a few others sitting around the table talking about what was coming up on the agenda for that day and what resolutions were coming in, anything that we had to vote on, and it was all the planning and arranging of the House of Bishops meetings every day. But it actually started almost 3 years earlier by even doing a site visit in January following the 2015 General Convention, so January of 2016, doing a site visit in Austin and working together with this team as we move forward towards General Convention. So once we got there, we were ready, we were prepared, and every day we just kept on going through the list of what had to happen and trying to get things to move along. Sitting beside Michael Curry, our presiding bishop, was a great joy. What an amazing man. And we worked very, very well together, as did the entire dais, or as we would say, the platform for General Convention for the House of Bishops. And I was very, very proud of our own Bishop Diocesan John Taylor, who stood up at the microphone during General Convention and made some very poignant remarks, especially around Israel-Palestine and other issues. So it was just a joy to watch. As your bishop suffragan, I so enjoyed being there, but afterwards, I will tell you, I was really tired, but it was a good tired. Thank you for the privilege of doing this work.
This was Bishop Taylor's first General Convention as a member of either house. Let's hear his report.
For me, General Convention in Austin was about connection and collegiality internationally and locally. Since 1966, because of the geopolitics of the Cold War, there had been a breach between the Episcopal Church in Cuba and the Episcopal Church of the United States. That breach was healed thanks to some very deft canonical work by our colleagues in both the House of Deputies and the House of Bishops. And the current Bishop of Cuba, Griselda Delgado, was welcomed onto the floor of the House of Bishops for the first time in 2 generations, thanks to that work, as an amazing demonstration of the unity in Christ to which we are all invited. 60 bishops, deacons, lay people, and priests from the Diocese of Los Angeles helped to make my point about the local angle. As I think we all know, Angelenos played a leadership role in the historic compromise on marriage equity that brought marriage, equity, justice, even to dioceses whose bishops are skeptical about it. And Angelenos also played a leadership role in vital legislation in this era having to do with immigration justice. I worked as a newbie on 2 issues while in Austin. I served on the Committee on Racial Reconciliation, and the testimony we heard across 2 weeks helped us understand that anti-racism and racial reconciliation depends on relationship and narrative and story, stopping and taking the time to get to know one another across divisions of socioeconomics, culture, language, and other barriers to justice and equity. It's work we're doing as a national church, and it's work that we're going to bring to the Diocese of Los Angeles in months and years ahead as we work on overcoming some of these same barriers in our far-flung 5.5 county diocese. And I also had the privilege of sponsoring a resolution identifying scapegoating as a sin in our politics, scoring political points by driving wedges between people in politics. Jesus doesn't like it, and it's not good for our political system as well. I also worked on the fraud issue of justice with peace for the people of Israel and Palestine. Hundreds of us in the Diocese of Los Angeles have made our pilgrimage to Israel and Palestine, and hundreds more have a passion for peace with justice in the region. And I came away from Austin more determined than ever to find a way to use our energy and our resources in Los Angeles for constructive engagement on behalf of the foundations of political and economic statehood in Palestine. So it was an international experience, but it was a local experience even more. All in all, I was eager to come back from Austin with lots of ideas and lots of energy to bring the work of Christ home to the Diocese of Los Angeles.
Every member of your LA deputation was just as busy the whole 2 weeks of convention. Canon Jim White chaired the deputation and organized our lively daily debrief at the LA headquarters hotel. He brought his energy and passion for ministry to the legislative committee that fosters new thinking for keeping congregations, dioceses, and provinces strong. His most moving moment during convention was the visit to the Hutto Detention Center, about 25 miles outside of Austin. There we saw women detainees waving pieces of paper in the windows so we'd know they saw us standing in solidarity. Third-time deputy Catherine Nishibayashi served on the Legislative Committee on Christian Formation and Discipleship. Among the resolutions she worked was one insisting on and celebrating the inclusion of transgender and non-binary persons in the full sacramental life of the Church. Dan Valdez served on the Committee on Social Justice and U.S. Policy. He chaired a subcommittee where legislation was created to advocate for the just treatment of immigrants. He was up late almost every night, helping craft language that would pass muster in both houses, while enabling the Church to witness for Christ's love without compromise. This was also Deputy Julie Dean Larson's first General Convention. She attended every breakfast meeting, general session, evening Eucharist, Title IV hearing, and dinner recap. Julie describes her time in Austin as a grueling schedule of excitement, punctuated by boredom, hallway surprises, reunions, and victorious votes. In the end, seeing its polity in practice, she felt more hopeful than ever about our church's future. Marjorie Cooley, chair of our diocesan altar guild, was the one and only lay alternate to General Convention. She kept busy tracking resolutions through committees. When the House of Deputies was in session, she cheered us on, and she also provided necessary relief when lay deputies needed rest or when a deputy needed time to work on their particular resolutions before they came to the House for a vote. At her own first convention, alternate deputy Kelly Grace Kurtz was glad to have witnessed the historic vote in both houses, welcoming our siblings from Cuba back to the Episcopal Church. She monitored and reported back to the deputation the work of the Committee on Church-Wide Leadership. She is proud of our seminarian, Casey Robertson, as she advocated for better access for those with disabilities. We also have Canon Kurtz to thank for our sweet EDLA polo shirts. This was Susan Russell's 10th General Convention and her second as a member of the House of Deputies. For a generation, she has been a prophetic voice for equity and justice for all in our church, a relentless, eloquent, gracious witness for the egalitarian heart of Christ. This year, she played a decisive role in an historic step forward. Let's hear her story.
Making all sacraments available to all people was a key goal at the 79th General Convention, and Resolution B012 achieved that. However, it was a hard-won compromise. Because it fell short of changing the language regarding marriage in the current prayer book, there are those who believe our actions continue to fall short of the full and equal claim the Episcopal Church has promised the LGBTQ baptized since 1976. And because it removes the ability for dissenting bishops to prohibit same-sex couples from access to the liturgies in their home churches, there are those who see our actions as a bridge too far away from their belief that marriage is only between a man and a woman. And yet it was a compromise that received overwhelming support from both the House of Deputies and the House of Bishops, something those of us who've been at this work for literally decades could not have imagined even a few short years ago. We've gone from being a church where simply acknowledging the existence of same-sex couples in our midst was a controversial and deeply divisive issue, to being a church where an overwhelming majority embraced marriage for all, ending what was de facto sacramental apartheid for same-sex couples in some dioceses. We have done that over many years, with many steps forward and some steps back, and with the action in Austin, we did it in a resolution that protects both theological conscience and sacramental access for all. Yes, there are still some details to work out in some dioceses, but when B012 goes into effect on the first Sunday of Advent, it will open the way for couples throughout the Episcopal Church to marry the love of their life in their own parish with their own clergy presiding. What we did together in Austin was work very well done, and I am both deeply proud to be an Episcopalian and deeply grateful to all those on whose shoulders we stand as we start this new chapter, moving out of the trenches of the inclusion wars and forward together into God's future as part of the Episcopal branch of the Jesus movement.
And I'm Melissa McCarthy, the Canon to the Ordinary. In Austin, I was one of your clergy deputies. Besides my duties on the floor, participating in debates and voting, I lent support to Bishop Taylor and Deputation Chair White as they did their work and provided logistical and scheduling support for the whole deputation. It was a lot like being Canon to the Ordinary. A deeply moving time for me came halfway through convention, the service of witness in a park near the convention center, organized by Bishops United Against Gun Violence. At this rally, we heard from the family of one of the teens killed in Florida. All week, we had been trying our best to make the church the best it can be, just, inclusive, fair, and loving. At Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School, the world had seen humanity at its worst, angry, isolated, toxic, and murderous. Bishops United has a good plan to reduce gun violence. Jesus Christ has a good plan to unlock the love in each heart, but it will take a lot more work, facing up to privilege and prejudice, preaching that all are beloved of God, making sure no one is left behind, devalued, abused, or marginalized. We were all proud to represent you in Austin as we did this work the best we could. And we came home to Los Angeles, encouraged for all the good work ahead.